From primal dawn, when humans first began to use fire to drive away wild beasts, we formed a powerful survival instinct, the fear of the dark. That instinct was wired deep into DNA, passed on down to all generations. Our brains are specially designed to seek out potential threats in vast, formless, dark voids. When you look into a dark corner of a room, your brain will fill in most frightening images to force your body to be alert.
We always comfort ourselves with a very sweet lie that all monsters are just not real. Hello, it's me again. Today, we will not talk about all the blurry ghosts recounted through the words of drunken men. We will not discuss all the mystic beings redrawn by sheer fantasy.
Today, we will look straight into the abyss through video clips, pictures, and physical proofs that till now are still just black files left unsolved. Make absolutely sure that you are in a locked room. Pull the curtains closed to ensure nothing is peeping at you from outside. Then wear headphones. And now let us begin.
The common human mindset thinks that danger is only in the outside world. Once we tightly lock the main door 3 times, close all windows, draw curtains blocking every view from outside, we will be very safe. The house is an invincible fortress, but true ultimate fear never comes from very far off places, away from the spot you can choose not to go to. The most perfect fear is the one that roots itself right where you let down all of your guard, where you close your eyes and fall asleep, taking us to Japan's crowded urban society to face the stuffiness, tightness, and fury of cramped space with the entity called Tsukima.
Unlike tales of giant monsters or ghosts that appear with a roar, Tsukima is based on a physical concept that we just can never, ever get rid of. The lack of perfect spaces. Just try to glance around your own very quiet room. Right now, there's a narrow gap of about 2 centimeters between 2 cabinet doors not shut tight, a very thin gap between bed edge and concrete wall, or even still, just a hairline crack as fine as thread on the plaster ceiling. Those harmless empty voids, those very dead spaces you never pay mind to, are actually the never-closing door that leads ever straight down into hell.
Try to imagine a typical scene. You are inside your own bedroom at 2 in the morning. The space so still, you can hear clearly the blood vessels pounding loudly inside your ears. It all seems so very calm for self-assurance. You bend down to look under bed. You breathe out relieved. Below the bed is just a dark, empty space. Just a bit of dust on the beams. No evil demon lurks underneath. You raise your head to look up at the soft bed where your roommate lies wrapped tight in a blanket from head to toe, hiding their face, their breathing slow and steady, proving they have sunk deep into sleep. This total safety is so dull. But then, from an unconscious habit, your eyes skim the narrow gap between the wooden wardrobe door set against the wall. But no, in there, something reflects the very weak light of the bedside small lamp. You squint to look closer, and your heart just seems to stop. One human eye, one huge eyeball just swollen with dark red bloody streaks. With its black pupil staring wide open, lying jammed inside that narrow 2-centimeter gap, it's staring hard at you. No blinking, no sound of breath, not a single intact body attached behind it. It's just a single eye pressed tight into that physical gap, staring at you with a seething spite. Tsukima has no clear overall form because no one has ever seen her whole entire body and lived to tell the tale. In modern Japanese culture, she was born from the repressions of very cramped, crowded urban life, from extreme personal space invasion. The psychological fear begins right when your eyeball accidentally meets that very bloodshot eye. The first stage is nervous system erosion. Even if alone in a locked room, you always feel a killing aura around, a stare stuck so tight to your nape. The second stage is visual nightmares. The gaps inside the house seem to stretch out, widening in an odd way. Each time night descends, you will see that wild eye just appearing in all the places. Every nook, from the gap of the window that won't shut tight, the desk drawer, the thin gap between 2 books on the shelf, or even the tiny slit of a dumb tissue box. Wherever you go, you'll see an eye that stalks. Human endurance has its limit. The victim's psyche gets shattered by surveillance fear syndrome and claustrophobia syndrome. They start taping shut every gap inside the house, but it is never enough. The tragic tale always ends when the victim can no longer suppress curiosity, and pent-up pressure drives them insane, like moth diving into fire. They will stagger forth, shakily press their eye to that gap to see for sure what evil demon is just ever dwelling within. And at that second, when the victim's pupil locks tight into the dark, a pale white hand with skinny, cold, bony fingers will spring out from that absurdly narrow gap. It grabs the eyeball tight, claws its nails deep into the flesh, and with an irresistible force, yanks the victim's whole body into that tiny space just a few centimeters wide. Each fractured bone piece crushed and melting into the night. You vanish without a trace in reality, forever becoming part of the dark, wedged tight between concrete layers, your bloody, grim eye wide, waiting for the following poor victim to just peer into the gap.
Abandoning the floating ghosts of North America's valley, we push south into the murky, tangled, reeking canal network of Xochimilco. Tens of kilometers from the heart of Mexico City. Here lies hidden a place name that needs not any single urban legend to prove its very horrifying existence. Isla de las Muñecas, Doll Island. This sad and ghostly story began half a century ago. Don Julian Santana Barrera was a man who left his family and social life to retreat to a small, lonely island in the very remote canals of Xochimilco. His life had drifted by in a stillness until a destined day, he found a very young girl's body washed up to the island's shoreline. Despite all desperate efforts, Julian could not save the girl's life. A few days after that tragic death, as if by a cruel twist of fate, a weathered plastic doll drifted with the current and surfaced right where the little girl had taken her final breath. Tormented by guilt for failing to save the child's life and believing that the poor girl's spirit had entered that lifeless toy, Julian then picked up the doll, tied it onto the highest tree branch on the island in order to appease her ghost, hoping she would find peace. But for the brain of Julian, sinking deep into madness, a single doll is never sufficient to soothe a soul full of bitter hatred. For over 50 years of the remainder of his life, Julian became obsessively insane with collecting dolls. He scavenged the city's enormous landfills, retrieved any human-shaped thing from the bottom of the very murky old canals, and even traded his own homegrown produce for so many damaged dolls from the locals. The tiny island quickly turned into a huge toy cemetery, a museum of decay. There are thousands of dolls dangling from the branches of ancient trees, and they are fully attached all over the crooked and decayed walls of the little hut where he dwelt. The isle's air has a ghostly, sad aura and a very thick smell of death. Among thousands of toys ruthlessly ravaged by the cruel tropical weather, there are certain presences that make people gasp because of their spine-chilling realism. Don't misunderstand this island's scariness. It does not come from dolls that are burnt very black, headless, or having very hollow eye sockets. Those things are too mundane and just cheap jump scares of the horror films. The true fear is found in those fashion dolls which still keep their form completely intact, and the psychological knockout for any brave person setting foot on the aisle is the body language of these dolls. The ball joints at the shoulders, the elbows, the hips, first made by manufacturers so kids could freely pose them to swing arms and walk, are still locked very tight by rust and dirt and old cobwebs. The doll's two arms hang very limply down, along its body stiff and powerless. The doll's tiny hand, with 10 plastic fingers, hangs completely limp, not even grasping a single thing, not clinging at the branch or the rope that hangs them. The absolute stillness, complete surrender, the yielding posture to fate creates a heavy psychological weight, crushing the observer's nerves. You stand there watching them and clearly feel that behind all those glass eyes, so lifeless, thousands of entities silently judge you. Locals living near Xochimilco all pass around these very terrible curses. They swear that when the night falls and covers up the sunlight, when mist rises from the canal's surface,
They hear little dolls whispering to each other in a language not of humans, their hard plastic necks automatically making crisp clicking sounds, all slowly turning toward boats gliding past the island. The climax of this tragedy is the death of Don Julian Santana himself in 2001. The boatman found his body face down, floating on the water, at the very exact spot where just half a century before, he pulled up the drowned little girl's corpse. Is that a cruel twist of fate? A heart attack due to old age? Or did the soul of the little girl, with thousands of spirits hiding in the dolls, decide to pull their only guardian down into the same very deep, dark abyss? Nobody knows the truth, but the suffocating silence of the doll island still continues to devour the curious who dare just step foot here to test their nerve. Having left behind the island of lifeless plastic eyes, we go back to the primal and most instinctive animal fear, the fear of immense darkness and endless forests, deep and vast. Welcome to the Appalachian Mountains, stretching across eastern North America, where conifers intertwine to hide the sunlight, the source of most haunting urban legend about an ecosystem. Not deer, a creature that's not deer. This is not a folk fairy tale of gods ruling the jungle, protecting nature, but a nightmare about the catastrophic deformation of everything. So in psychology and graphics, a very famous concept is called the uncanny valley. I don't know how many times I've mentioned this already. This concept describes the feeling of disgust, cold chills along the spine, and extreme sickness when we see something, a doll or a creature, whose shape is extremely similar to a human or animal we know well, but has tiny details deliberately distorted.
Our brain identifies it as same species or familiar, but our danger warning system inside screams that it's a fake thing. So now, run away fast. Not deer is the living and perfect embodiment of this very odd valley concept applied to animals. Most experienced woodsmen, most skillful hunters, and night truck drivers who cross remote mountain passes cutting through national parks all share the same ultimate haunting experience that made them quit their jobs and never dare return to forest again. All of it happened on the dense, foggy nights under the car's pale yellow lights. They see the shape of a deer standing by the roadside, common sight in North America. But when the driver slows and looks closer, the animal's body structure starts to show its awful deviation. Its bone structure is warped and irrational, defying all anatomical law. Maybe its neck is too long, curving backward 180 degrees, an angle where a normal spine would certainly shatter and snap the spinal cord. Maybe its front leg joints grow reverse toward the back, making a limping upright stance full of pain. Its chest swells abnormally, as though there was a huge foreign mass churning inside, trying to rip the very fragile skin apart to crawl out. Its fur is patchy and ragged, many places so bare, exposing grayish skin patches. But the most awful thing is not the looks, but rather their actions. Any grazing animal, when facing the roar of an engine, a car's blinding headlights, or the appearance of humans, will instantly flee for its own life to survive. But not deer is just not like that. Instead of panicking and turning back deep into woods, this being slowly raises its forelegs off ground and stands upright on its hind legs. It stands clumsily, unsteadily, swaying back and forth like a drunkard, but tries to maintain a dead stillness. Its two front legs hang very loosely down at its hips, just like a person's arms, and then it slowly twists its broken neck back. Its eyes do not reflect the lifeless light in the very dark night. Like the eyes of normal beasts, the eyes of not deer have white parts, have clear pupils, carry a sharp look full of perception, not carrying prey's panic, but carrying the cold calculation of a predator. It directs that stare at the driver sitting behind the wheel. The very scariness of not deer lies in how it squarely destroys nature's order that your brain painstakingly built up since your birth. A big grizzly bear, however fierce and bloodthirsty, you always know it's a bear. You know how to react to it. But a creature donning the worn-out skin of a gentle animal, but carrying the mindset, body language, and stare of a predator, will collapse every mental defense system of yours. Many scientists try to explain this phenomenon by explaining it with chronic wasting disease, a prion disease that turns deer brains into sponge, making them act crazy, lose awareness, and have skinny, deformed bodies. But the Appalachian natives only very faintly smile at that explanation.
ancient native records here state that deep down, under the very thick rotting forest floor, still exist ancient entities. Skinwalker demons, yearning to be human, steal wild animal hides to wear, trying to imitate the shape and behavior of living things to approach their prey with such great ease. But they are forever just a flawed copy, a very gross patchwork of nature. When you sit safely inside your car and stare straight into the forest's darkness, if that darkness stares back at you through a deer's eyes, but its mouth's corners curl up into a wicked human smile, hit the gas pedal full force and then flee. Never turn your head back. We go back to 2007 in a quiet residential area of San Joaquin Valley, Fresno, California. This place is not some remote, barren land, nor does it have bloody histories to attract ghost stories. It's just a normal suburb like any other place.
Yet then, a home security cam installed on the front porch caught a clip just a few tens of seconds long, enough to shatter all of the norms of biology, anatomy, and modern physics. They call them Fresno Nightcrawlers, or the local Fresno dark-lurking stalkers. The clip was shot in low-quality black and white infrared, full of the annoying static noise grains of old camera tech. The frame shows a quiet, empty yard, still grass under pale moonlight, and then, from the dark right screen corner, an entity slowly steps out. It's less than 1 meter. It has absolutely no upper body, no chest for heart or lungs, no arms to swing, no skull brain structure or any internal organs we could recognize whatsoever. Looking at its appearance, it's just a pair of long, thin legs connected together by a tiny, wrinkled piece of flesh atop. The true horror of Fresno Nightcrawlers is not in bloodthirsty appearance. It has no sharp fangs waiting just to tear the victims apart, no claws to threaten. Its utmost terror lies in its very motion. Observe very closely how this creature walks. Any bipedal creature on Earth, from humans to birds, needs the counterbalance of an upper body or the swinging of arms, wings, to maintain its center of gravity while moving. When we lift one leg, the entire pelvis and spine must adjust so the body doesn't just collapse to the ground. But the Nightcrawler completely ignores this basic physics law. The joints of its knees appear bent forward in an unnatural fashion, or maybe it has no knee joints, only long, flexible tendon cartilage segments. It moves with a lurching, bumpy pace, like a wood puppet with snapped strings, yet it keeps perfect balance to an extremely mad degree. It feels like Earth's gravity has no effect whatsoever upon its own body. It floats around more than it walks. Soon after the clip's public release, it created big uproar among paranormal researchers and among the film FX specialists. Independent directors made dozens of exposés of this video. They thought it was just a very clever prank. They tried using marionette puppets controlled with transparent fishing line, but couldn't create realistic weight. When the creature's foot hit the earth, they tried on long white pants, twisting their bodies, stooping very low in night to mimic it. But human skeleton does not allow those strange strides without any sudden fall. They even had to use CGI software to recreate, but the grainy, noisy image and the blur of the creature's edge mixing so perfectly with the backdrop, something that 2007 FX tech could barely do cheaply. The results? Always a dead end. No expert dares to claim that this video is 100% fake. 4 years later, in 2011, another security cam again recorded this creature's appearance. This time, it was not in a residential zone, but deep in the wild of Yosemite National Park. The second clip shows not one, but two entities. One large walking ahead, one small slowly trudging behind, tailing each other across a gentle slope. This clip once more drove people crazy back at that time. But on April 10th, 2026, the YouTube channel that uploaded that clip admitted that he had created it for an old supernatural show. And when the show went nowhere, he also forgot to delete that video. By the time he remembered, the video had become extremely famous with many views. Because the audience loved it so much, he chose to just leave it right there. So the footage that caught Nightcrawlers in 2011 is fake. But that doesn't mean other video clips are exactly the same. A rumor goes that when researchers looked into the Yokuts tribe's Native American culture, who've lived in this valley for thousands of years, they found secrets that send a very cold chill straight down your nape.
Inside the ancient wood carvings and the murals of this tribe, they found drawings that accurately depict those creatures which have only legs, no upper body. Yokit's natives do not call them monsters or devils. They reverently call them the primitive walkers, spirits born from mud and from tree roots. Their mission is not to attack humans, but to wander aimlessly through the ages, to witness the Earth's change, being the bridge that maintains balance between netherworld and living world. However, I still found no source of the story, nor any evidence at all. The only things I ever found are still nothing more than mere oral tales. Nightcrawlers bear no malice at all. They don't make any sound, don't chase anyone. But it is their silent and absurd existence that shatters our perception of biology. Then, have you ever wondered, while curled in your warm blanket, how bone-deep unease would surround you? When you realize right there outside the front yard is a faceless creature moving, a pair of pale legs slowly strolling past your bedroom window. Story number 5, the final tale, and the one that tortures the nervous system most violently, will take us across the ocean to the barren lands of Los Llanos between the borders of Venezuela and Colombia. Here, nightfall brings not only cold loneliness, it also brings an artistic messenger of death, El Silbón, the Whistler. Unlike beasts born from nature or lab mutants, El Silbón carries a bloody origin from human sins themselves. Legend says he was once an arrogant young man, spoiled rotten, cursed forever for committing the most unforgivable crime in the world, murdering his own father just because a meal did not please his taste. The punishment for the grave sinner is a brutal torture. He is tied tight to a tree trunk, whipped many times by oxhide leather thongs. The torn wounds on his back are stuffed with some rock salt and also wild pepper. At last, his grandfather cursed him, sent him out into the wild. From then, he became a demon, cursed to roam eternally across barren fields, carrying on his back a very rough sack of his own father's bones, always tortured by hellish hounds, never ever allowed to take rest, even for a single moment. El Silbón's form is often described as a strangely tall, thin shadow, towering above the trees, so skinny that skin wraps tight around his ribs, flickering and twitching under very dim moonlight. However, what kills the solitary wanderer is not his own bizarre shape. El Silbón's death scythe truly is the very most brutal art of auditory deception in all history. Unlike wild beasts that attack in silence to ambush their prey, El Silbón proudly announces his arrival with a whistling tune. It is not a scream or a roar, but an extremely slow, quite clear melody, long stretched through the very 7 bass notes of the scale. Each single night note's lingering sound always holds sadness and cold, deep piercing to the listener's very core. But this is the deadly law that any night wanderer in Los Llanos must etch deep into his very bones with his own life. The human auditory system evolved to sense physical distance in space. Common law of sound is quite simple. The louder and more intense the sound, the closer the source. Softer and fainter sound means source farther away. But when facing El Silbón, all those very basic laws of physics are completely reversed. If you walk across a barren plain and suddenly hear that 7-note whistle ring out, very shrill and sharp, its sound intensity driving into your eardrum as if someone is pressing lips to your ear and blowing, then breathe a sigh of relief. Calmly keep walking. But if in the still night of that wild grass plain, you perk your ears and by chance catch a whistle that sounds extremely faint, that sounds so delicate, distant, weak, like a thin strip of silk carried away by the winds brushing through the reeds at the far horizon, and you slightly curl your lips into a smile, thinking the monster is at a perfectly safe distance, then sorry, the devil's joke has already closed. He's not at the horizon, he's looming right behind you. His lanky shadow already covers your trembling body fully. Cold breath brings the smell of wet earth, of dry blood and rotting flesh blowing directly onto your own nape. And in that instant, before your brain resolves the clash of hearing and reality, the coarse burlap sack packed with human bones slowly gapes open, ready to welcome another skeleton. The terror, The supreme art of El Silbone's killing is that he makes our own brains betray our survival instinct when you mistakenly believe you are in the safest shell, when you naively calculate the threat is still an unreachable distance away. Then that is precisely when the invisible Reaper's scythe has been set against your neck.
So 5 stories. We always try out scientific reasons to reject them all. We blame it on very poor camera quality, on the clever lies online, on the brain chemical chaos when we are short on sleep. But the truth is, the darkness around us has never been just an empty void. Every void has its own owner. Life does not exist only in all the forms we can understand.
Next time you reach to turn the ceiling light off, curl up and hide your face under the blanket on your warm bed to fall asleep, then listen well to the sounds that echo all around. Who knows? The clunk you just called wind hitting a branch on the sill might actually be the sound of stirring, the sound of rearranging the warped joints of something patiently waiting in the corner, silent for you to open your own eyes. Don't ever look into the cracks, and sleep very soundly tonight.